Hello, my name is Justin Kennedy, Justin Francis Kennedy. We're sitting in Martin Gropius now. We just performed UNFURL, which is a lucid science fiction opera. The starting point, one could say, it's been like a lifetime, I guess. Like this story feels like it's like an unfolding of a lifetime. But let's say like this portion of it started a few years ago when we were working on these kind of street operas, post-colonial street operas. And we were kind of reflecting on death and death of nature, death of the empire, but also the death of my mother at that time. So dealing with kind of death on the broader sense, death and apocalypse. And we developed this story of this character named Empress Alberta. And the story kind of is it's a mythology, so it's mythologized, but it's based off of real figures. So when we were doing these street operas, they started here actually in Berlin, but we did a version of them in Copenhagen. And we were doing research about hidden figures, mainly femmes and women figures that were erased from history. And we came across this one figure that she's from the Virgin Islands and Danish colonial history, and her name was Alberta. And so we did a lot of this kind of reparative research around this character and created a character, Empress Alberta, that was based on this figure. And then from there, it's unfolded into this larger experience because we've worked together. We started teaching workshops, dance workshops together. Me and Balz were doing these street operas and doing kind of street performances and happenings, most of them involving music and art. And so now this became the kind of Gesamtkunstwerk.
Ja, genau.
UNFURL kind of became the meeting point or the point of connection between the dance, the music, the theatricality, and the art. Yeah.
So yeah, my name is Emma. And just to follow up on that, because we met almost 5 years ago now, Justin and I. And so I even became introduced to the story actually through Justin first. I hadn't met Balz, but I got to meet Balz through this process. But we had been working a lot with how to achieve liminal states without the use of psychodrugs, so through repetition and through movement. And in a way to, we were giving workshops to help people work with their own bodies. And this is everyone, like people who are coming from science or the visual arts or psychology or, whatever they do. If they were interested in showing up and working with us, we basically were teaching them skills, how to work and regeneratively through through their physicality. And so we've developed our own method of how to generate material and fodder for choreography and for events like this, these kind of happenings that bring together also the material works, the song, the dance, also normally we get the audience up and dancing with us and singing with us. There were a lot of restrictions due to the current COVID times. But so there's this overlapping that ended up occurring. And so the story of Alberta also started to unfurl in different ways, where we started to bring in also these rants and these tangents and these other stories that came out of kind of riffing off of similar histories and finding ways, also personal histories, and finding ways to use that material and transform it into something that can be generative and exuberant and celebrative, and especially in these times to bring forward some kind of feeling of like, we got to work through it. We got to get in there and do the work. So then this is how I got to meet Balz Isler. And then the three of us have been working together over the last couple months, kind of on and off, to find ways to bring these worlds together. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you just said, my name is Balz Isler. And I totally adapt on what it's already said. What I could add is that I think for me personally, I think it's interesting and very refreshing always, everywhere, every time when we continue a new branch of this kind of mythology is it kind of started out of this time and from wherever it came, but then it grew, and everywhere where we are invited, or it gives another branch of this tree, symbolically said.
Yes.
And especially these trees or these branches are then usually in a contemporary question about what we want to place here in the topic of a new invitation for something. And this kind of adapts then into that mythology that kind of then slightly always expands itself. So it's kind of very, in itself, thematically, pulsing in itself, but also in a way how we work it out. And this is, for me, conceptually and lively, very kind of, pulsing.
Pulsing thing. Zimzine. So we started, we've been self-producing these events under Alive and Then Some for the last 4 years that come out of the workshops. So we work with a group of people for about a month, and at the end of the month we have an event where people are invited, and usually these are durational. We have what we call a 4-hour cave rave that happens before the performance, and then there's this ongoing performance that unfolds with song and dance and cocktails, and we always provide a zimzine. And so it comes from the bringing together of zim, which is like a hymn book, which has all the songs in it so that people can follow along and can sing along with us. And then zine, which is more comes from like Riot Girl days, like those putting together a zine with a bunch of photos and images and drawings that come from everyone who takes part in the workshop. Of course, in this case, we were working with Franziska Morlock, a designer who helped us to kind of bring it to the next level. So it really is, it's a beautiful book that we ended up making that has also expanded to include, freedom to the footnotes, the rants and the tangents and the riffs and the things that needed to get dropped and the could have beens and neologisms and but it's just a beautiful way also to kind of track all of the work that we do through the process so that we can go back to it later and be like, yeah, there was this and that. Maybe we want to take that and now make a whole scene based on that.
Exactly.
Branch. It's like a way of, archiving all of our material, which there's a lot of. It's a very generous, generative process. So, yeah.
And another mode of expression, like as we said before, like I think we have all of these modes of expression at our fingertips, like dance, singing, theater. And another mode is this publication. And we were able to really fidget with the format, if you know what I mean. Working with Franziska and developing this really interesting 4-tiered format. So the first tier or first column is the story, second tier or column is the lyrics, and then the third tier is the footnotes. And the fourth tier is the footnotes to the footnotes, or the meta commentary, poetic meta commentary. So it was, like you said, it was a way of tracking, but also a way of like kind of keeping it like always expanding and always reflecting back on itself. Like we always had a way of like looking at the story, but then zooming out to maybe discourse or actual history or actual political moments in time. So always being able to use the publication as a way to bridge between the content and maybe larger themes or things that are happening. So Apocalypso is the larger kind of lucid science fiction opera work that we've been working on for a long time. Many of the songs featured in UNFURL, which were beautifully accompanied and arranged by Nkisi and Ethan Braun. Me and Balz developed in 2017. while we were working with another recording artist and producer named Zhang in Los Angeles. And during that, I mean, we also work quick, you know what I'm saying? We were here for like a week, and we were there for 2 weeks, and we didn't even work every day, but we somehow like produced 8 songs in that short amount of time. But one could say, like he said, we've been kind of working on this mythology, this co-mythologizing for like a lifetime. So it's like we get into a certain context, whether it be the museum or the recording studio, and it's just an unfolding of this mythology. So we worked on several of the songs in 2017, and those have been like with us for this whole time, like the melodies, the lyrics, the song.
And then also, as we just yesterday just said to each other or realized with each other, that actually the songs are now unfurled. Of course, the story and everything kind of, but the songs itself, because we kind of did them to force the strength about continuation about this mythology, because we sometimes know that the time is not always given to really produce the music when you come together for a week or whatever. But we thought, this is our rhythm, this is our pulse of working. So okay, we go there just to make music, collecting these elements of music, to using them afterwards again, and how and whoever with it. And then now it kind of
we swirled all together.
So and then we just kind of adopt melodically some things and lyrics and transitions, but it's really kind of giving fundaments. Yeah, roots, let's say.
You know, I don't come from a voice background. I come from a dance background, and then I went into visual arts, and I spent my life trying to figure out how to bring these two things together. But I have to say, like, one of the really moving parts of this process for me has been also the invitation to come into the songs and to figure out different ways to work together on playing with the voice. And this for me requires a great deal of trust and also generosity from the group to work together and kind of let go of certain authorship. And I think this is just an important point that I feel is really essential, especially being in the Martin Gropius Bau, being blocked off by this exhibition Masculinities Beside Us, is there's also this, one of the things that is essential to me about this work is the loss of the author, is that it's just not one of us, it's all of us working together to make this happen. And we managed to do so in such an incredibly difficult time. So I just feel really proud of everyone for all the work, and also for you for sticking with us, Maria, and like everybody who made this happen, you know, like it's incredible. So yeah, I just want to say that, the generosity of the work, and everybody who is here making it happen.
And I would add on an ad, like footnote of the tier, because I think this would also kind of reveal into a very natural result of or like an answer in how we had to work in these days. It's very swirling, it's very unclear, it's very vague, but we have all this basic kind of things we know from the past and from here, but it's actually a time where really kind of it's rolling, it's shifting, it's changing. But this is kind of the way it feels like, okay, even with higher or lower hierarchies we play and
swirl.
Swirl. And I think this is even if we don't know how to get on, but we can reveal to.
We'll figure it out. I know we will. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Right?
Thank you so much.